How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Connect LE, our monthly podcast. Again, join us today, the Honorable Mayor and a good friend of mine, Mr. Brian Tisdale. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. What do we have in store today?
Well, we're going to talk with the treasurer, tax collector, Matthew Jennings. He's here visiting with us, and he's going to talk about some financial things.
Well, that's good because I have a lot of questions. My taxes went up, so maybe you can help me out there. Huh?
Yeah, maybe not.
Well, welcome today. And, today's conversation is a very important one specifically for today because today is one of the most important days of the year. And you can tell us why.
Today is a little bit different because today federal taxes are due, right? Federal and state. However, what I do is collect local property taxes. And those actually, if you're paying today, then you're going to be paying a little bit extra because you're late and it's a penalty involved.
Wow. Well, how about you tell us a little about your background? We know what you do, but tell us, how'd you get to this spot?
Well, it's the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office, and we really are responsible for three different distinct areas. First off, we deal with the banking relationship on behalf of the County of Riverside. So all of the departments have to really go through us to deal with accounts and opening accounts and withdrawing funds, etc. The second part of that is we handle the investment portfolio for the county as well as all of the school districts within the county. We operate about a $17 billion investment portfolio on behalf of all of the clients there. And then lastly is what we talked about with property taxes. And we collect property taxes throughout the county, both secured and unsecured. Which basically means residential and commercial, as well as personal property taxes. A lot of people don't know that if you own, say, a boat, a business, things like that, you have to pay property taxes on those things as well. And so I started off in the office as an office assistant too, 31 years ago. And just worked my way up over the past 30 years to the position where I am now, which this department is an elected position as well. And so I won election back in 22.
Nice. So now that we have you in this position, what is a misconception about your office? How about that? Let's start with that.
A misconception, one of the misconceptions is that we have a lot more flexibility than what we do. Because, if, for example, property taxes are due twice a year, December 10th and April 10th is when they're delinquent. However, if they're not paid on time, then there's a penalty that attaches to those. And a lot of people will ask, hey, can't you just waive these penalties? Or I've never been late before and that kind of thing. And the law provides us very, very little flexibility about being able to waive those penalties. There's specific statutes and specific reasons when we can, and then everything else we actually just can't. So I think that's a common misconception, is that we have a lot more flexibility than we do, especially being an elected position. However, everything we do is governed by state law, whether it's revenue and taxation code or government code.
How is property value assessed in Riverside County, and what are the key factors that influence those assessments?
Well, the assessment of value is actually done by the county assessor's office. So the property tax cycle basically is handled by three different independently elected offices. So it starts with the assessor. And the assessor, they produce the values, they assess values, they establish ownership, they handle all of the exemptions, title information, mailing addresses, situs addresses, they handle all that. And what they do is they build a property tax roll. They then pass that along to the auditor controller. The auditor controller actually calculates the tax bill. And then after the calculations are done, they add in special assessments, et cetera. They send a complete roll to us. And then my job is to bill and collect those property taxes and invest it. And then after we invest it, we actually give it back to the auditor controller so that they can distribute the funds. And so the assessment of the property is handled by the assessor. However, in a nutshell, anytime a property changes ownership, it gets reassessed. Or if there's new construction, you have to pull a permit, it gets reassessed. Other than that, it doesn't get reassessed. It goes up 2% on an annual basis. When the reassessment occurs because of a purchase, let's just say, they usually will reassess it at the purchase price. The only time they don't is if they feel that that's excessively below market value. Then they'll actually send an appraiser out and appraise the property.
So you have the funnest job of them all, collecting the money.
Yes, for things that I didn't even do.
I think that's important. People know that you're not the one raising the taxes or any of that. You're just a collector of it.
Correct.
Okay. So if our folks here in Lake Elsinore want to know more about their property, how it was assessed, or has questions about their tax bill, where do they start?
If they have really questions about how it was assessed and if it's increased, beyond what they feel it should, they really need to contact the county assessor. And they have information on their online and telephone line. They also have email addresses. And so you can just really Google the Riverside County Assessor and it'll list everything, all the contact information for them. If you actually have questions about bills and payments and things like that we would deal with, then you can reach us several different ways. Our website is countytreasurer.org. And then we also take requests through the phone line, which our phone number is 951-955-3900. And then you can also follow us on social media now at Rivco TTC, I believe. And you can follow us there, and that has some information as well.
That's amazing. Now, the other question I have, and specifically when it comes down to not only property values but the economy, does the economy affect what you guys do in regards to collecting? Let's say house values go up. How does that work?
It does affect us, but in California, not as much because of Proposition 13. Okay. So basically, when there are sales, then the assessor's office will reassess property based upon those sales, and as prices are going up, then the new reassessment goes higher, and then that actually increases the property tax revenue for the jurisdictions, for the county as well as the school districts. So as values are rising, property taxes will rise also, but it's not a one-to-one kind of market increase because of Prop 13. So the only time the assessor can actually reassess the property in an upward trajectory is if there's new construction or change in ownership. If there is not that, then it's only going to go up 2% per year because of Prop 13. So under Prop 13, that 2% increase, sometimes, depending on how long you've owned your property, that can be well below market value. So in California, based upon our property values and things like that, because real estate is really expensive out here, our property tax revenue actually is lagging because of Prop 13.
So Prop 13 isn't necessarily a good thing, or, well, I guess, like for me, I've been in my house for 26 years. It's a good thing for me.
Yes.
But not for the county that needs the revenue.
That is correct, actually. Very good thing for the property owners. Because, if you've owned your property for like 30 years, I mean, you're really getting a break on property taxes. But if if it sells recently, and especially like during the height of a market, for example, since 2020, 21, purchased property there at the height of the market, that's good for property tax revenue. However, for the property owner, they're having to pay their tax base is much higher. And so the revenue on the county side, it's not where it should be, but for property owners, it's a really good deal. And I think that's why it was approved and passed way back then.
So for our cities, how does all this affect our cities? So the city of Lake Elsinore, because obviously, we live, or the city operates off of the money that's collected. So for property tax, so how does this impact us? It
impacts the city the same as it does all taxing jurisdictions. Basically, as property values increase, then the tax revenue would increase, and then the city's portion of that tax revenue would increase. Now, during downtimes, for example, after the 2007-8 financial crisis, property values plummeted. So there's a mechanism that the assessor has to review those values in a declining market and lower them. And so they proactively did that, but also a taxpayer can ask that be done. They can ask the assessor, say, hey, we bought our property in 08 or 06 and say at 500 grand, it's 2010 and now it's worth 300 grand, but we're still paying taxes on the 500 grand plus the 2% increases. So can you lower it? And the assessor, under declining market conditions, they can go out and lower the value and keep lowering it every year until it comes back up to where it previously was. And sometimes that could take 2 years. Sometimes it could take 20 years. Just depends on how the market is progressing.
And to your point, during that time, there were a lot of bad deals made and a lot of people suffering long term for, and that's good information to know. Now, let's get into a little, I think this is very important because a lot of people don't understand that your office also, and you mentioned this earlier, it helps the education of the students that live in this county because a lot of your money goes back to the districts to help out with education, with programs. That's a very essential part that a lot of people don't understand. I would imagine they complain too much about, hey, I'm paying so much in taxes, but it's coming back.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the good thing about property taxes. And a lot of people don't know this. They don't understand. They think that all the money that we collect actually goes just back to the state. And then, that gets distributed through, the state's budget process. But all property taxes actually stay local. So a good portion of them actually go to provide, we're the largest revenue generator for the county for discretionary funds. So we give the county roughly about $1 billion a year in discretionary revenue. And that makes up about 80% of the total of discretionary revenue that the county has. Right. And what they use with that money is to provide services that the county provides: fire services, law enforcement services, streets, roads, social services, mental health services, the county hospital. All those things are supported and funded through property taxes. However, the largest portion of property taxes, roughly about 60%, goes to all the school districts within the county. And so out of the roughly $5 billion that we collect every year, about $2.5 to $3 billion of that goes back to the school districts, and they use that money to fund the schools, to pay teachers, to build new projects, new playgrounds, and things like that, as well as some goes to parks, park and rec, build parks, clean up parks, etc. So all of the money stays local within the county and into the cities as well.
Wow.
So when we did a tax measure, so how does that money, I don't think people understand how the money sort of comes back to the city. So we did a 1% tax measure. So how does it comes to you, and then what happens?
Well, that 1% tax measure, and I'm not familiar with it, but I believe that would have been a sales tax measure, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So sales tax we don't deal with.
Okay.
That actually is through the state, and that basically goes to the state. Comes typically either to the city or the county, depending on which jurisdiction is responsible, from the state. And so the county is only really responsible for sales tax in unincorporated areas. Okay. So Lake Elsinore, we wouldn't really have a part in that sales tax.
So the folks that live all around us, that's where you deal with the sales tax, the unincorporated areas around the cities.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Wow. Now there's Now the other misconception of what you do too, and I've heard this a lot, is normally, the federal tax. They think you guys are also doing, collect federal tax, and as you explained, that's not the case.
No, absolutely not. And I thank God that's not the case.
Wrote a check. I didn't write it to Matthew.
Yeah, definitely. And there's so many different types of taxes. It's no wonder people get confused, to be honest. But each level of government typically handles their own taxes, and then that tax varies. So federal government, they're going to handle income taxes. The state will handle, they have income taxes as well. But then counties going to have property taxes, and then typical cities get a portion of county property taxes, but then they have sales tax is what really supports the cities.
Now, Matt, you mentioned something very key. There's lots of taxes. Now, I've, doing research, there's a lot of fraud also, people getting scammed, in saying that they're with your office or any other financial institution that collects. Has this gotten worse? What can you tell us about that?
Yes, unfortunately, it has. It has gotten worse. It's increased substantially, and it's unfortunate. A lot of folks are they're honing in on like seniors and some of our most vulnerable populations, and that's who they're targeting. But they're also targeting people just like me and you. It's kind of widespread, and unfortunately, it's increased because they're having some success, and so it's become such of a problem that we actually started implementing things with our department to tackle a lot of the fraud that we're aware of or that we see or come across, which isn't all of it, but it's some that we have access to, that we actually have a little bit of knowledge on. So part of our, we've made a very big push recently toward education and outreach in general. And part of that education and outreach effort, one of them is cybersecurity. So last year we held a cybersecurity forum at the County Administrative Center, the first time we've ever done that, but we're going to continue to do that on an annual basis. And we brought in folks from Riverside County Information Technology, a security chief. We brought in the banks, their fraud security experts. We brought in school district employees who deal with us in accounting and things like that. And we just gave a lot of good information. And another part of that we're going to be doing is going into like senior communities and doing things like this to where we can get up and talk to them about some of the fraud and things that we may be seeing that we can alert them of, even if it has nothing to do with us. Just if we see it and come across it, I think it's our duty to actually get that into the communication, into the community if we know about it.
What are some of those recommendations that you will, you can provide to the viewer, to avoid being scammed? One big one is email. Soon as you'll get an email from a fraudster that looks very, very real. The only thing that it might say is so say they're sending it from me requesting account information and they're pretending to be me. It'll say it's from M Jennings at rivco.org, or it'll say M Jennings and leave out one N or something like that. And then it'll say, hey, we need you to click on this to approve this document. And as soon as you click on that link, your system gets infected and it's just bad. Now they have access to maybe passwords, account information, all kinds of things. And so that's a big one is really phishing emails and things like that. That's huge. And that's something that we can, as just a regular person, we can guard against just by being a little bit more vigilant, by saying, okay, I'm not familiar with this, or something doesn't look right. Let's see if I can see some patterns here. And if you're at a place of business, just report that to your IT. I don't normally get something like this. Can you take a look at it before you start clicking on links? It's the clicking on the links is really what does it. Does your office reach people via telephone or email or text messages? Anything like that? Or is it more of a formalized letter? How does that work?
Ours is more of a formalized letter or a tax bill.
Okay.
We rarely call people or email people just when we are initiating that. So our only, for example, emails are really in response to emails that we receive. So we're just replying. Phone calls are in response to phone calls we're receiving. So we're just responding. The other part of it is we have a process where you can actually sign up for what we call e-billing. So instead of getting a paper tax bill, you can get a digital copy emailed to you. And when we do that, then yes, we will send an email out, but you have to sign up for that service. So it's not like we just start emailing tax bills. You would know if you get an email from us because you have to initiate it.
Got it.
That's great information to know, that so people, if they start seeing stuff and they didn't initiate it, it's not from you.
That's correct.
Yeah. And one that really stuck out to me when I was researching these scams is there's also people calling and saying, hey, you know what? You got a reimbursement coming back, but I need to verify your information. Then they send Social Security, driver's license, address, and then you're fried at that point.
Yeah, you're done. And so those calls are that's another one. And that actually is getting so sophisticated that they're recording your real voice and using AI to generate a message in your voice.
Wow.
Right. So we found that out with some of our wiring, because when we actually have to pay bills as a county or even the school district, all the school districts and the county departments have to send their wire request to us in order to pay vendors. Well, one of the things that we have in place to prevent fraud is we have to actually talk to somebody. So we have to call back at the number that you have previously given us, etc. And so we found a couple of times where fraudsters actually tried to record this person's voice and use that. But, we have such strong measures that we were able to catch it. However, a normal person, they probably wouldn't.
They wouldn't know to think about something like that.
Yes.
Well, that's just insane. But takeaways from what we've just talked about: the county tax collector's office will not initiate an email unless there's a conversation already established between the collector or the resident. That's
Correct.
one. Two, the other one is an email will be produced only if you register for that. For that service, correct?
Correct.
And the other thing is also you will not have anybody call and collect via phone call or ask for personal information via the phone.
Correct. Now, not ask for personal information. However, the only time that there is that is the case, because on a rare occasion we will call, but I think you probably you're going to have more concerns than that, because with our unsecured tax enforcement division, we actually have field investigators that go out into the field to try and collect from businesses anything that's unsecured, so someone doesn't pay their boat for a while, or mobile homes. That's another big one. We actually send those folks out into the field. Well, sometimes before we send them out, we try and have them reach out via phone to save time and money. So if you're delinquent on unsecured property tax, you might get a phone call from us and you might want to answer that. But we're not going to those. We don't take payment or anything like over the phone or anything like that. So we're not going to ask for personal information. The extent of that is going to be, hey, you owe us money. This is what you owe. You can go to our website and pay it, and we won't even give you the website. Look it up, so that you can trust the information is valid.
Gotcha.
So now that you mention that, are there any property tax relief programs or exemptions available for seniors or veterans or low-income residents that people should know about?
Yeah, you would think that there are a lot, but there aren't. Okay. And I've actually thought about that. And to be honest, I believe that there isn't, really, because of the nature of where these taxes are going. Because the state, when this was implemented, they knew that, hey, police, fire, schools would need these funds to operate. So they granted very little exemptions and ways to reduce the property taxes for that reason, because it's going to be lost revenue for all these services, and these services wouldn't be able to be provided. So there's not a whole lot of help. There are a couple of exemptions that are handled through the assessor. As far as there's a disabled veterans exemption and a regular veterans exemption. A disabled veterans exemption that will exempt more of the value than just a regular veterans exemption. So veterans, there's things for them. And then there's a homeowner's exemption that'll exempt a little bit of value if it's your primary place of residence. Outside of that, nonprofits can apply for exemptions because they're doing charitable work. So there's exemptions for them. Other than that, there are no other ones. So for seniors or anything like that, regular disabled, there are no exemptions. There are payment plans that are offered through, for example, we contract with an outside company through the California State Association of Counties, where if you, for example, you have a lot of folks that have a mortgage, they have an impound account. The impound account is like an escrow account. In your monthly payment, they collect the taxes and then they pay us, the mortgage company pays us when the taxes are due. So the regular taxpayer doesn't have to worry about paying the taxes directly to us when they become due. There's a program that will allow you to kind of do the same thing if you don't have a mortgage where it's being impounded. So if you want to break it up, instead of paying us twice a year, you want to break it up and pay monthly, then we have a means on our website that you can click a link to be able to do that.
So there's really no reason why you shouldn't pay your taxes, because there's opportunities for you to make payments on it. There's, so if you get into this, this bind there, this trouble, there's really no reason to. I mean,
there's options.
There's options, and you're there to help.
And we're there to help. And the best thing we can do is, hey, give us a call, see what we can do. Because sometimes they've already gotten in trouble and, they think, okay, now we got to pay all these penalties and just one lump sum. Well, we have a payment plan once you start getting in trouble where we can break it up. So the best thing to do is just to give us a call, whether you've gotten in trouble or you think you may get there and you're looking for some guidance.
Well, that's good information.
Absolutely.
That's really great information. So you mentioned the veterans programs. So where do people find that? Because there are a lot of veterans in town and there's a lot of disabled veterans. So where do they find information about veterans exemptions?
That's going to be the county assessor's office.
At the county assessor's office.
Yes. So there again, their website, I believe they have applications online where you can find it, but you can also email them, call them. They have several points of contact. You can set up an appointment to go in and have somebody explain it to you and walk you through it and everything.
Well, I'm a veteran. I might play with it a little bit. see what's there.
See what's there. There you go.
There.
Well, that takes us into the end of the show. I really appreciate you joining us today, Matt. It's been great information, specifically for our veterans that, for the most part, get overlooked sometimes. And this is a great opportunity. We'll make sure to put that website down for you on the captions there so you guys can go ahead and research that. But again, through the assessor's office, that's where they can find that information.
That is correct.
Any closing thoughts?
Well, I just really appreciate you coming out and educating the folks up Lake Elsinore. Again, I think a lot of people, they don't know what they know. And it's good that we can hear it from the man himself that takes in the money, not raises money, actually takes it in and share information on what they can do and how taxes are done and everything else. So we really appreciate having you here.
Well, I appreciate the invite. As far as I'm concerned, the more that I can get out into the public and educate, then the better off the community is going to be, the better off our office and department is going to be as well. So it's mutually beneficial, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do it.
Well, we appreciate you and your time and your staff's time. And thank you again, Brian, for doing your third show, your third podcast, the third of many to come. Well, that's it for us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on today's segment. Connect Ali and tune in, because we have more next month of information that you want to know about, and of course what we've got to tell you about. So thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one.